Welcome to The House, a real estate podcast that breaks down all the walls and helps create your open floor plan to success. We sit down with the movers, the shakers, and everyone in between to hear their stories and how to build success in this world. So draw up those building plans and start pulling permits, because this is The House and we're breaking ground now.
All right, ready?
Yep.
All right. When you're speaking with someone, how do you stand? Are you slouching? Are you standing tall? How are you holding your hands? Are they crisscrossed? Are they in your pocket? Do you find yourself speaking with filler words? Trying to pause in awkward ways where you're not sure what to say next? Well, get ready for today's guest. I was in the presence of greatness, in my opinion, when I went to the entrepreneur conference, and I was able to listen to this gentleman speak. And this is something that one of my colleagues and I go over day in and day out, how to speak more proper without using as many filler words in between your sentences. And we call each other out on it on a daily basis. So when hearing this gentleman speak at the entrepreneur conference, I knew I had to speak to him again, and I'm so grateful that he gave me the time. So without further ado, welcome to the House Podcast, Rene Rodriguez. Thank you.
Hey, Josh, thanks for having me. It's an honor to be here.
You know, I really appreciate it, and I want to dive right in because I value your time so much. I know you're big into the behavioral neuroscience of the breakdown, I guess, of what people think and basically the communication of how these people go about their daily day. So, you know, give us the quick elevator pitch for the people that don't know you and who didn't have the pleasure of, you know, hearing you speak at the conference, a little bit about yourself and your background.
Sure. Well, I'm a keynote speaker. My background is in behavioral neuroscience, but for 27 years, we've been applying that science to areas of sales, leadership, influence, change management, and leadership. And so the companies that we work with are usually going through massive change. The individuals that we're trying to help are ones that are like yourself, that are trying to, entrepreneurs that are trying to communicate a message, CEOs that are trying to get people to buy in on a vision, anybody who needs to communicate an idea from one person to another, or from themselves to a team, or from themselves to somebody buying a product. And how do you influence that behavior? That's what our concept of Amplify is about. And so my main focus, though, is on how do you help leaders create influence.
Gotcha. I mean, I was so blown away when you put on that demonstration with the gentleman that you used. It made so much sense. And the littlest things, when you mentioned you can hold your hands, you know, like this, but are they up? Are they angled this way compared to when they're crisscross? Or your arms are like this? It was the simplest thing that you would never even, the average person doesn't even pick up on, but that gives so much away about the confidence that you may be portraying in so many different ways. It's honestly incredible, and I'm sure you can go on forever about it. But what are like the top 3 things that you see people do that are wrong compared to what they should be doing, you know, correctly?
Well, the first thing that introduces, your body introduces you before your voice does. And so people not noticing how we're communicating things and not paying attention to the basics. And you don't have to be a body language expert to know that there are some things we probably shouldn't be doing. Slouching in your chair at a business meeting isn't the thing you should be doing. And, you know, saying, you know, hunching over or not standing tall. Our parents taught us to put our chest out. You know, those are some basic fundamental things, but they're not also going to change your career. These are just basic foundations. And so what we're looking for when it comes to body language, though, is we're looking for congruency, and congruency in what we say and how we're behaving, because the science really says that it's really hard for us to lie. Our body doesn't like to lie. And when we believe one thing and we're saying another, our body goes under stress, and the body leaks that stress out in so many different ways. And so you've seen it before. We all remember Clinton when he said, "I did not have sexual relations with that woman." And he's nodding his head in this yes way. And you look at the steroid scandals in sports where they're like, "Yep, I did it." And you know, they're nodding their head in the other way. And so there's all sorts of giveaways that are happening, and the lack of confidence that happens during the process. It's happening all the time. So one is people not paying attention to how their body is doing it, and then some people that are overly paying attention. They're trying to construe something or trying to portray something that isn't real. The best part about body language is that when you get right internally, when you speak about something that you believe, your body's going to follow. That's the authentic communication and a congruent message. And so focusing on an authentic message, something you already believe in, and then creating self-awareness around that message, that's where it really should be the key.
Yeah, and you could tell when somebody is, like you said, is not being like true. You could feel that energy come off them, and when they're talking and they physically mean what they're saying, you literally feel that.
Yeah, you can feel it a mile away. You can feel it in their voice and their tones and the micro expressions and all the little elements. Your brain is designed to pick all that stuff up. And our experience of that is sometimes we meet people and we're like, I don't know what it is about them, but I just don't trust them. Something's
Right.
off, right?
Right.
The something that's off are all the little things that are off that maybe the naked eye can't see, but we pick up. And there's some things about people that's like, I don't know what it is about them. I love being around them. I love them. I trust them. I feel like I've known you forever. That's really what we say. I feel like I've known you forever is really another way of saying, I really trust you. And so those types of things are all picked up. And when we understand them, we build awareness around them and we start learning them. And then we start really focusing in on what we believe. Because a lot of the work that we do isn't right on how do we fix body language. It's yes, let's build awareness around body language. Well, let's fix it. But let's focus more of our attention on what do we believe, and let's get in that lane of what we believe. That is what we call the lane of your heart, what you believe, what your values are, and what your memories are. Because your memories are really what serve who you are right now.
Right.
And the construct of all those memories really formulate what your values are. Your values are what you want to live, because that's where you're most in line with what your purpose is. And so you align all those elements, and then you teach people techniques on top of something that is a foundation of authenticity. Now you start seeing something really cool come up.
Yeah, that's it. Really is so interesting to honestly just listen to all the different fundamentals about it, because when you just standing next to somebody and you're just speaking, unless for me, I'm not thinking these things, right? But for somebody like yourself who studies this on a daily basis, are you able to have a normal conversation with somebody and not be thinking of all the things they're doing wrong, or does that automatically click to you? Or like, I need to know. Oh, he's using these filler words. Oh, he's slouching. Oh, his arms are crossed.
I don't do it. I don't sit and judge people. No, unless you're paying me to. And so it's one of those things, unless you're or asking me to, really. And even then it's I always ask why, because I know a lot of people that quote unquote do things wrong, but are really effective because they're coming from such an authentic place. And so they may be trembling as they're talking, but they're so sincere. And sorry, I keep clearing my throat because I need water in here. But the sincerity really overshadows everything else that they're doing. And so when all of that stuff comes together, we're really looking at a holistic picture, because body language shouldn't be taken alone. Body language needs to be taken in clusters of body language. And so where people really get into trouble is when they start taking a look at little just bits and pieces of body language on their own. And that really, really can be a difficult person to be around. Oh, I see you cross your arms. You must be defensive. No, I'm just cold. Right. Oh, I didn't take in consideration that temperature has something to do with it. Or sometimes just, bigger guys, we like to put our arms crossed because it just, our shoulders are heavy and arms just hanging. Gravity takes over. It's a heavy arm to pull down. And so we cross it over our chest, and it's just comfortable.
Right.
Sometimes it's a way of thinking. But if you see it in congruence, with our eyes being this and our head pulled away and our toes pointed towards the door, now in a clustered format, you start seeing that there's a bigger message being sent. And so we got to be able to take a look at all the elements there. But yeah, no, I'm not always sitting there judging. I'm observing and experiencing people the same way that you would.
Right.
And you're not sitting there judging every single thing that they're doing, but you're experiencing, is this person confident? Do you believe what they're saying? Am I safe with all the basic human questions? We're all doing that stuff.
Yeah. So when you were doing the conference, your main point was you're telling a story when you're speaking to somebody, right? So that really opened up my eyes, because when you explain something as your answer doesn't have to be a direct response to that question. And honestly, it made a lot of sense, but I've never till this day heard anybody phrase it that way until you mentioned it. And I thought it was super intriguing, and it made so much sense where you do tell a story rather than come back with, an ending question, basically.
Yeah, most people, they ask questions that they didn't put much thought into. And so they're just doing it to pass time. Most people are not good at being conversationalists. And when you look at that and you can assess that, okay, this question, what are they really asking? If they're saying, what do you see yourself in 5 years? Okay. Is that really what they're asking? Or are they trying to get a chance to know you? Because that might be a chance to talk about vision of when you grew up and the most important things that were for you. And so in those 5 years, somebody might say, where do you see yourself in 5 years? And you might go, I remember when I finished basketball, I had an opportunity to have some of the best coaches in my career. And the thing that I learned was that I advanced most in life and in basketball when I had a good coach. And the other thing that I learned was that I was most miserable when I didn't have a good coach. And so mentorship and coaching was most important. So in 5 years, where I see myself is really going to be a result of who I surround myself with. And so right now, I want to surround myself around the best mentors, the people that are going to teach me the most. It's not about money and income. Yes, I have income requirements and things, but I want to push myself. I want to grow, because in 5 years, I want to be the best version of myself. And that might look in terms of a vice president title. That might look in terms of whatever that is. And so you can kind of touch on the answer, but you see how I gave more of myself on the importance of coaching in my life, or the things that mattered to me.
Right.
And that's what that person really wants to know.
Yeah. And I think that, when you answer the question that way, it shows more about your physical self rather than you're just saying, oh, I want to be a mentor when I grow up in the next 5 years. I see myself mentoring. Okay, why do you see that? You kind of hit on those, you kind of went in a circle and brought it to conclusion, which is kind of something that I never even thought of doing, but it makes a lot of sense because now they see why you're talking about or why you answered the way you answered.
Exactly. And that backdrop, that context, that why, or we call the frame, is what helps them understand the answer to the question. And if you frame it correctly, you can then tie it down towards a value proposition or a core message that you're trying to make sure that you deliver based on what we call your influence objective. Because if you're clear, if it's an interview, you're trying to get a job. So make sure that message drives you closer to wanting to be hired. If you're trying to sell a product, that makes sure that brings you closer to the value proposition of them saying yes to buying from you. Or if you're trying to recruit somebody, how does that bring you close to aligning with the needs of that recruit? All of those elements can be put if you're self-aware in the beginning, understanding what's going on, carrying yourself right, but listening and then developing that story to be able to match the outcome.
So for an example, if you have one, how you just mentioned, the question was, where do you see yourself, say, in 5 years? And you were getting to being the mentorship. What would be like the next part as like that hook, or I forgot what you just mentioned, what the proper wording was. What would that, next spot be, or what's the go-to spot?
So to be able to answer that question, we go through the process. And the first question we answer before we go through this is, who's my audience? Right? You can't speak without understanding your audience. And so many people just speak regardless of the audience.
Right.
And when you learn to say, okay, who's my audience? And it might be an audience of 2 people, but that doesn't answer, quantity of people doesn't answer who the audience is.
Correct.
To me, who the audience is who are they? What do they do? Why are they there? What's in it for them? Like, what are they looking for? Like, what's their major need? What problems are they looking to be solved? And so if I understand who's my audience, like, what's their motivation for being there?
Right.
And in that sense, then I go, okay, how can I serve some of those needs in my answer? How can I structure that? And if I don't know my audience, I'm going to ask questions before I answer. Because otherwise, why am I talking? And it's going to waste their time and mine. And so one of the things that I learned a long time ago is that we're not the sum total of what we say. So people think that we're the sum total. I'm just going to say a lot and talk fast and get as much out there, because the more I say, the more chances I get. It's not true. You're not the sum total of what you say. You're the average of what you say. So if you say a lot of crap, you're just going to be average crap.
Right.
If you say a level 10 comment and you just keep it there, just one phrase, people are like, wow, that was amazing. But if you say a level 10 followed by a level 3, you just average yourself out to around a 5, like whatever, 6 or 7, whatever it is. And then another 2, and you bring your average way down because you just kept talking stuff that was just fluff.
Yeah.
And so the term that we use is as much as necessary, but as little as possible. And so how do we get to that place where we know? And so as much as necessary, the only way I know that is by understanding what my audience needs. And so in this context of, what it is, who's my audience? Okay, let's pretend that the audience is looking to hire you, or let's say, because let's ask this, who's your listener? Tell me a little bit about your listener.
So say our listeners are potential entrepreneurs or people that want to get into the real estate field.
Okay. And so if their audience is a potential, let's say, who's the audience? I'm one of the entrepreneurs. So who's the audience for these people, for them? A client or somebody they're trying to sell to?
Yeah. So they want to sell, they're trying to sell a product, say.
Okay. So what product am I selling? Am I a real estate agent?
Yeah, we'll keep it on the real estate end. So say I'm a real estate agent, I'm trying to pitch potential buyers.
Okay. So at that point, here's the thing. In real estate, you're either number one or number two to get to your buyer, or you're not even in the game, because most, 81 to 92% of people are going to buy or sign their contracts with the first or second agent they meet with. Yep. And so you got to make sure your marketing games are tight and that you're getting to people at the moment they need to start looking at houses. You got to make sure that your technology is tight, so that they're looking through services that you have some sort of influence on, so when they're searching, because they're going to go to the internet before they go to you. You also need to make sure that you have a lender that is tight, because they're starting to go to lenders first, and you want to make sure that a lender is actually promoting you as well. And so all those things, thank you, save me. So all those things need to be in place so that you have all that there. Let me grab a sip of water.
Yeah, no, and it's so true about the internet, like you just mentioned. It happened to me today, which was actually crazy that you just bring it up. Literally, I had a realtor from Oklahoma reached out to me today, said, I have a seller. I Googled the area. Your information came up on Google. I searched you. I liked the stuff that you had on your profiles. Would you be willing to work with this client to sell his house in Lindenhurst? And the race was off. I didn't have to sell myself. I sold myself based on my social media and my Google pages. Like, he looked into me and said, this is the guy from Oklahoma.
Right. And then a lot of realtors are going to get into the commission question. And the sad part of the commission question is that once that happens, it's the saddest question there is, because they don't know what else to judge that person by. If they're worried about a commission, that means that they see you as the same as everyone else, and the only thing I can measure the difference is how much I pay you. And that's sad. The reality is the commission question is one of the last things that should be discussed, because most people are around the same, and you can roll out of your real estate school and charge the same commission that somebody's been in the business for 15 years. And if I've been in the business 15 years, I better be charging a little bit more than somebody who just got out of school.
Absolutely.
And if you're charging the same, then what value are you offering? Because value should be measurable. It should be measurable. Well, I make it up in volume. But
you're worth something extra than
you're worth something extra. And
yeah.
I learned that lesson the first time I sold my first home. And I'm talking about as a consumer, not as an agent, because I'm not a real estate agent. I'm a salesperson, so I was putting the agents through a ringer. I'm saying, who's going to sell my house at the price that I want? I didn't understand the market, and I told her this is the price that I wanted to. And this guy comes in, he's at 7%, and he wouldn't sell it to the price I wanted. I said, "You're crazy." I said, I want you to sell this price with this because you'd rather earn a little bit. He said, "Nope, you're crazy." And finally, I got a guy to agree to 6%, 6%, and he said he would sell it for the price that I said. So I felt so good that I pushed these guys, and I pushed them around, and I got the price that I wanted, thinking that I controlled the price.
Right.
14 months later, house had not sold. Meanwhile, I'm also living in another home, so I'm making 2 mortgage payments. Right. 2. What's the price of going cheap? It's having the house that doesn't sell at the time that you need it to.
Right.
The marketing that not having the network, not having somebody walking in and going, "Hey, did you know that stucco has potentials of this and that?" We're in the process of getting another house right now, and having the right agent that walk in and look at the house and go, "Okay, did you know this, and that?" And I'm like, "Oh my God, I didn't even see that." There should be a co-buyer, an expert buyer next to you. There's no computer that's going to do that for me.
Absolutely.
There's no computer that's going to go up and feel a wall and go, "You know what? I think there was some damage done here earlier. Can you feel that? The soft that is?" There's something that's there about that experience and that trust. And when I know I walk through that house and I've got a brand new agent, I even got my son who's got his license. He's 20, 19. He was 19 at the time. I'm not going to use him to buy my house. He's 19. Even if it was free, I'm not going to do it because I need the advice.
Right.
And so you've got to be able to communicate that message, and it's got to be done through story. And the story that I just told you, you can use a story like that, where I went back to the guy that said he was 7% and the price that I didn't want to hear. I called him back 14 months later, tail between my legs. He's like, "Hey, Mr. Rodriguez, how's the sale going along?" I said, "Well, so I'm calling you back." He goes, "It didn't sell, did it?" I'm like, "No." He goes, "Well, sorry to hear that." You can just hear him cheering in the background quietly. And so then I said, "Yeah." I said, "Well, you still at 7%?" He said, "Yep." I said, "All right, well, let's get it sold. Just as long as you give me that price." I said, "Well, Mr. Rodriguez, sorry to tell you, the market's shifted since then. It's actually going to be even lower than what we talked about." And so not only did I miss out on a market, but I paid an extra 14 months, 2 mortgages, and now I'm paying an extra 1% on top of it. Where had I just done it the first time, and guess what? He sold it in less than 30 days. So now
there's always a reason.
that kind of story needs to be told in the context of a pricing question so that the client understands the contrast of buying something cheap.
It's so true, because if you just responded, "Oh, I charge this," okay, that's great. But what did that prove? Like, if you tell them that story in first and then break it down to why, basically the why, that's basically the why and how you land at your number, they can understand it more rather than I get paid 4%.
Right.
So
Right.
it's something that I really started to implement now into my own business after hearing you have the story at the conference, because you don't need to be so direct with an answer, where you could pretty much show them in a story what your answer is. So I think it's so important for people to do so. And I think they would get much better results regardless of what you're pitching or selling or what you're speaking about, because now your answer has meaning behind it, which I
Right.
thought was super important. So thank you for that, because it was honestly a life-changing moment in my opinion.
Awesome. That's good to hear. I mean, I got to tell you, we hear that a lot because the value of being able to communicate your message in a way that not only people will pay attention to you, but will act upon is one of the most significant things. Because think about it. What happens when you try to tell a joke and no one laughs? You sell a product and no one buys. You set a vision and no one buys in.
Right.
You feel insignificant because you have no impact. That's the feeling of having no influence. And that leads to depression, that leads to sadness, that leads to loneliness, that leads to one of what I feel is the worst of the human experiences. The converse to that, you tell a joke, people laugh, you sell the product and people buy, you lay out a vision and people, they hop on board.
Right.
That's influence. That's feeling of significance because you are making an impact on the world around you. So to me, influencing behavior is one of the greatest of all human experiences. It's at the core of leadership. It's what makes us better parents, better teachers, better police officers. Police officers that are able to influence their community, influence somebody to listen and to comply. There's so many things that go into that. So
no, it's so true.
There's a lot.
Yeah, I'm sure you can go on forever. So I got one question. How do you feel about the lack of communication and and skills in communication and posture in school, and how they set you up for life in business? They're always about learning social studies and learning, different ways to add the same numbers in different orders in math, rather than trying to focus on some of the key things in life, balancing a checkbook, speaking properly in front of a group of friends or at an event. I feel it's on the bottom of the totem pole in school. And I think that's one of the most important things as I'm growing up in the entrepreneur world, of how important that stuff is. How do you feel about that in the schooling?
Well, my answer might not be as popular. I think school is a great thing. And I think school is teaching us things that I can't teach my kids. I can't teach them math. School teaches kids critical thinking. It teaches them a discipline of study. It teaches them how to interact. It teaches them how to sit there and learn a subject matter. I don't have the discipline to take and entertain my kid for 8 hours a day. I have to work, right? So
Right.
they're putting them through a process of saying, you've got 1 year to grow from this grade to that grade, right? So they're learning the progression of something. And we need people to understand math. We need people to understand reading. I can't sit down and teach my kids reading and conjugation and all the things that we take for granted. We're reading and learning this technology because a teacher taught us.
Right.
And so, do we need to expand that a little bit? Yeah. But can I teach my kid how to balance a checkbook? Yes. Can I teach them how to stand in posture? Yes.
Yeah,
Can we do some of those things? Yes. I think parents need to take ownership on some of those pieces.
I agree.
Are there classes now that do that? Absolutely. My kid, they went to school, they have Vantage program. And if their kids are smart enough, they test into it, they can go to programs like that. And we need to provide. I do give back to schools anytime that I can. I volunteer and will speak and bring these services. And I tell my clients, if they've got a kid that needs a scholarship to come to an Amplify event, that's a $6,000 ticket.
Wow.
And there's a good story there. I'll
Yeah.
make a space for them. And we have had convicted murderers come through my course. Youngest convicted murderer in San Quentin history. If you know San Quentin, the most dangerous prison in California. The youngest convicted murderer prisoner in history there came to our event and had an amazing story. Still friends with him today.
That's incredible.
So we can give back and do some of those things. Now, school isn't for everyone, though. I'll be the first to tell you that as well. I struggled, but thank God I went because it taught me how to think. It taught me about philosophy. It taught me about ethics. It taught me to question and to think critically. Because if somebody isn't there to ask me questions that I didn't want to ask, people think philosophy is bad. No, philosophy is great. It teaches you think, okay, maybe there's 2 or 3 sides to this one stupid question, and then you get into an ethical discussion around paying out commissions and, God, well, they were here at this point, but that person was there. Now you're in an ethical dilemma. Well, good. I had that was some of those in school. It forced your brain to kind of start thinking about some of that stuff. So, but now we need doctors and lawyers. They need to go to school. Engineers need to go to school. But is the same track for everyone? Absolutely not. Can you be successful without school? Absolutely. Some of the most successful people in the world are that way.
Right.
But we also look to those people that are savants. We look to those people that are so far ahead of the game, as sort of the norm.
Right. It's so true. I'll end it with this last question. I know we're tight on time, but I just want to hit on your new book that's coming out, Amplify Your Influence. I'm going to pre-order mine today because I'm not a big book reader, but I'm so intrigued on how everything that you mentioned that I really want to learn about it. Can you give us a quick 30-second pitch of what the book is going to detail?
Yeah, the book's going to outline what we call the Amplify process. And Amplify, in fact, we just wrote about this, so I'm just going to read it to you because we're writing the book as it goes right now. And the process and what it is, this is what it is. So Amplify takes the neuroscience and psychology behind our behaviors, simplifies it, and combines that with an acute understanding of self-awareness, emotions, storytelling, body language, and more to help each of us better deliver our ideas to others. The result is the ability to enhance our message delivery and connect with our audience, whether that be an audience of 1, 100, or 1,000 and up. And in the process, we influence outcomes and improve our lives by having a greater impact on the world.
That's awesome. Yeah. So I'm definitely ordering my copy today. Again, I know you're pressed for time. So again, I really appreciate you coming on. For anybody that likes what they hear, they want to order your book, they want to reach out to you to possibly speak at an event or anything of that nature, join one of your classes, how's the best way to get a hold of you? Where do they find you?
Just go to meetrene.com. RENE and MEET. Don't go to MEAT. I don't know what that is. MEET, Rene.com.
Again, anybody that's looking to hear more about Rene, he is an incredible speaker. You will learn so much from how to just improve your business on a totally different level that you never thought was even a thing. I know it's helped mine. So Rene, again, I greatly appreciate you taking the time and doing what you're doing. It touched me, and I'm using it to touch my team. So I do really appreciate it, and it meant a lot.
Awesome. Thanks, Josh. You have a wonderful day. Appreciate being on here.
You too. Thanks again.
Take care.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye. All right, Josh, I'm starting.